Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, what's up? All right. Well, I'm coming in with my hands up, so don't shoot.
Okay.
You guys pretty much bodied those other guys. You know, I was kind of interested in the first caller. You know, he kind of had my question answered, and my question was, what would convince you that God exists? And
I don't know.
I think you responded to him. Well, I think you responded to him, and correct me if I'm wrong, you responded to him by saying that it wouldn't matter if God existed or not. God could appear in front of me right now and says, I am God. Would you praise or worship me?
No.
He said no.
No. I would believe, if a God appeared to me right now and demonstrated that he actually exists, I would, of course, believe that God exists, but that doesn't mean I'd worship it.
Separate things.
I believe Donald Trump is president, but I'm not fucking saluting him. Because I don't have to anymore. I'm no longer in the military. If I was in the military, I still would because it's required. But there's a different thing. There's what would convince you that God exists, and my answer is I don't know. And the follow-up to that, of course, which everybody's heard probably 100 times at this point, is I don't know what it would take to convince me that God exists, but God should know, and God should be capable of doing it. And the fact that he hasn't means that he either doesn't exist or doesn't want me to know he exists right now. Either way, it's not my problem. But a God could exist and demonstrate that he exists, and I still wouldn't worship him.
Well, you know, it's my position that it's not possible to prove to somebody that God exists. I think, you know.
So why would anybody believe if there's no way to demonstrate it? Why would you believe?
Right. Well, I mean, we can go there. I'm a Christian, and I believe the biblical God. I'm not in a denomination. I just go my foundation is the Bible.
So you believe in the God that supports slavery and misogyny and slaughtering off the Malachites and everything else? Malachites?
Yeah, that's the same God.
Yeah.
It's well, the way you're putting it is kind of disingenuous. It's
my aching ass! It's no. Let's not say that this is disingenuous. What's disingenuous is pretending that the God of the Bible is not in favor of slavery and misogyny
and genocide
and
incest.
Yeah. Well, there's specific rules about incest and who you can and can't sleep with. Father-daughter's evidently not off limits, but the rest of them are.
Hey, I explained that to Lot and Moses.
Right.
Adam and Eve. Let's go to another.
Anyway.
I mean,
when you say something's disingenuous, in what way am I misrepresenting the God of the Bible?
Well, you're saying that God, like when you speak of slavery, you're talking about
Exodus 21.
Like
oh man,
well, I know what you're referring. I know what you're referring to.
Okay.
I'm well aware of those verses. But what I'm saying is, when you're referring to slavery, you're speaking about like the kind of we had 100 years ago in America.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about what's in Exodus. Is it more?
No, I know what's in Exodus 21.
I bet you don't.
Matt,
I bet you don't, or you wouldn't have called me. You wouldn't have called me disingenuous. Is it morally correct to own another person as property?
No, but
does the Bible allow people to own other people as property?
It does.
Then why? So you've just admitted the Bible advocates for something you view as immoral. How am I being disingenuous?
Well, it's the way, because I know the way you're looking at it, and I know the way in context.
I just told you. No. You don't get to pull some context bullshit. You just agreed with me. The Bible advocates
without context.
My point is,
context is important.
I agree with you. Context is critical.
Right.
I'm not wrong on the context. You just agreed with me. The Bible advocates for something immoral.
Right, but you know, I was
right
because I know what you mean by slavery.
No, I'm talking about what the Bible means by slavery. That you shall buy your slaves you shall buy your slaves from the heathen that surround you. That they are your money and your property.
Calm down.
They are your money and your property that you can pass on to your children, and you can beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days. Where am I?
You could beat them.
He didn't stop talking.
Wait, did you say that doesn't say you can beat them?
Oh, you brought this up.
I thought you knew it. I thought you knew Exodus 21.
I know what verse you're talking about, but if you read that verse, it doesn't say that God said that you can do that. He's saying if this happens, this is what needs to be done.
Are you an idiot?
Say you can do.
Are you an idiot?
No.
I know you're not. I know you're not. This is what's so terribly embarrassing. This is what is absolutely frustrating to me. It's the reason why I bring up this all the time. Okay?
Right.
It says specifically, if someone beats his male or female servant and they die, that person is to be punished. But if they survive for a couple of days, that person is not to be punished. Is it moral?
Okay, but Matt,
is it moral?
Matt,
is it
stop right there,
fucking
Matt.
moral?
Calm down.
You stop, I'm talking. Is it moral to beat another human being as long as they don't die within a couple days?
Okay, I would say no. But
okay,
that's good.
What you just read. Are you saying that God commanded a man that, or told a man that he could beat his servant?
Are you saying that Exodus 21 is not from God?
No. I'm saying it's God inspired, but what I'm saying is, does it say that God said that you can do that, or does it say if this happens, this is what needs to be done?
Okay, so let me see if I can frame this a little differently. If we don't have a law, hang on. If we don't make a law, okay, that prohibits police brutality, but instead we say, if a policeman beats a black man and he doesn't die within a couple days, he gets off. Is that moral?
I mean, but that scripture also doesn't say that the person just gets off like that.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Oh my God!
Look, the judges of
Matt's looking this up while you talk. In the meantime, I got to ask you, man, how hard would it have been for God to have just prohibited it, to say thou shalt not own other people as property? How about other immoral things? What about spousal rape?
Here we go.
Why didn't God
an
care about
owner
that?
Who hits his male or female slave in the eye and destroys it must let the slave go free and compensate for the eye. And an owner who knocks out a tooth of a male or female slave must let the slave go free. It's not an eye for an eye when it comes to slaves. It's you must let them go free. It's a completely different set of justice. If a man beats his slave and he doesn't die, he is not to be punished because the slave is his property. Exodus 21, 20. Not to be punished because he's his property.
Right, and so what I'm saying is that it doesn't imply that nothing exactly is going to happen to him because of that. It just says he's just not going to be responsible for the death of that person.
No, that's not what it says.
Israel could still.
That's not what it says.
It says. Right, he would not be punished for the death of that servant.
That's not what it says. It says he will be punished for the death of the servant. You can't even stay on what it actually says. If a man beats a slave and he dies, that man is to be punished. If the slave does not die within a day or two, that man is not to be punished because the slave is his property, his money. That's what it says. Right. And that is from God, at least God inspired is what's supposed to be the message here. It is, I swear, I'm not trying to be a dick, Ryan, but it breaks my heart in a serious way for people, anybody, to make excuses for something that they acknowledge plainly is grossly immoral, that has led to the subjugation of people for ages. I don't have to do shit. You want me to hang up? Well, I'm sitting here talking about... You're on hold. I'm sitting here explaining how I wake up every day, every single day, in a world where the majority of people believe in batshit crazy stuff that is also evil and contributes to the destruction of society. And when I talk to people who believe this, who want to talk about, oh, you're getting it out of context, you're just not considering that, that's fucking bullshit. I read you the verses. When we're not looking at the verses, you don't necessarily get them right, but you agree that this is immoral, that people aren't property, that you shouldn't be allowed to beat them as long as they don't die, that you shouldn't be buying them from the people around you. And yet you are sitting here bending over backwards and accusing me of being disingenuous and taking it out of context in order to make excuses. Why not just acknowledge that book is grossly immoral and you and I are both better than that book? Why is that so hard? There are, by the way, Christians I've talked to who say, hey, those verses are immoral. I don't think those verses even necessarily came from a God. The God I believe in would not do that. The Bible is not de facto perfect. It is the result of men. Why not do that? And then you don't have to embarrass yourself and contribute to a culture that is amplifying immorality and pretending that it's moral, that it's permissible. Why not do that?
You're back on, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you're right. I did misspeak about the verse, but it's only because I'm trying to get in there, but you just keep jumping back in, and I'm trying to. Okay. I want to explain what's going on, because again, context is important.
Can I ask you a question before you jump in with Matt, really quick?
All right, go ahead, man.
Just really quick. Do you recognize that you're trying to justify slavery? Like, is that something that you recognize right now? And you could quibble about definitions, and that's fine, but you do realize you're justifying slavery right now.
Though. I mean, you guys keep saying, well, you could say definitions, you could say
no.
But that's bullshit.
That's because this was a quick question, because you're talking to Matt. I just wanted to ask, do you even recognize it?
Okay, slavery. There was slavery back in those days, but in Israel, the whole servant thing is not like the slave trade that was going on back in those days. Now, even though the guy did beat his servant, and if he lives, but he still has to go in front of the judges after that. I mean, as you read in the verses besides that, if he harms his servant, he's to be let go free. I mean, back in those days when somebody was a servant, like when people would be servants for a certain amount of years to pay off a debt.
No, Ryan, no. Indentured servitude is already immoral, and slaves didn't necessarily have rights, but that's not what we're talking about here. Let me cut to the chase. Ryan, would you be my slave under the rules established in Exodus 21?
If I could be, see, you keep saying slave, but it doesn't say slave, it says servant.
Oh my God. Ryan, would you be my servant under the rules of Exodus? No, shut up. Would you be my servant under the rules of Exodus 21?
It's a bad idea. Don't do it.
Why does this take even half a fucking second? This is the embarrassing thing. I'm gonna let you go, Ryan. I've already hung up because I want you to go and think about this. I'm not joking when I talk about how much this breaks my fucking heart to watch the poison that religion has imbued people with, to the point where they will bend over backwards and hem and haw about the easiest question I could ask. Are people property? Can you beat them? Would you be my slave, my servant, if you want to pedantically? It wasn't written in English anyway. Under what Exodus 21 says. It is grossly immoral. It is an embarrassment that anybody would pause for more than half a second to answer that question. Think about what your religion has done to your head. It is making you a slave to the religion, because you no longer have the free will and exercise to say, this is wrong. I don't understand how things that are obviously wrong, just because they're in somebody's book, you got to bend over backwards. Well, you got to think about the times. And it wasn't like, 150 years ago. It was, way back in the Israelites, and there were people who owed debts. Yes, and there were completely different rules for how to let your Jewish slaves go after 7 years, and then how you could trick fuck them into being your slaves forever, and how every 50 years was a year of Jubilee, and everybody got to go free. 50 years. 50 years. So when I buy a slave at 8, when they're 58, I can let them go. Oh, but Matt, what if the 50 years falls on their 10th birthday? You only had them for 2. Great, I don't buy an 8-year-old. I wait 2 years, and I buy the 11-year-old, and I get them for 49 years. There is literally no way to make what that book says about slavery remotely moral. And it's I tell you what, because I talk about this all the time, it's the prime example. It's the one I think is most obvious to people, that most people get. And I trust that Ryan will actually get it too. I don't know what he'll end up doing about it. I don't know what anybody will end up doing about it. But for the people who are like, oh, Matt just keeps harping on slavery. Yes! If you had a book that said it's okay to cut off your daughter's hand, what excuses would you make for that? And I would argue that cutting off somebody's hand is probably less harmful to them overall than maintaining them as a slave that you can beat and punish and sell off and give to your kids as their inheritance. You know, I can live without a hand. I can't live without freedom. I can't live a good, moral, humanist, valuable life without that freedom. And the people who are willing to sacrifice basic freedoms, actually, they're not. Because Ryan knows that there's no way he would ever be my servant under Exodus 21. What's actually going on in Ryan's head is, I can't say that because that would be me denying and denouncing the Bible. And my religious beliefs won't allow me to do that. That is the poison that religion imbues the population with, and it has to stop. I would love to never bring up Exodus 21 again forever. If the Christian community and the Jewish community would just get together and say, this is fucking wrong, we're going to at least ignore this passage in Exodus. You also have to ignore the one in Leviticus and the one in Deuteronomy, and the fact that in the New Testament, Jesus never says anything against slavery, and the only thing Paul ever says is, slaves, obey your masters in the Lord, even the cruel ones, which is the exact wrong thing to say to anybody. There's a reason slavery comes up over and over and over and over again, because it should be as obvious as whether or not the sun goes around the earth now that you actually have the evidence for it.